1990X 年、世界は核の炎に包まれた。海は枯れ、地は裂け、あらゆる生命体が絶滅したかに見えた。だが、人類は死滅していなかった。
I'm the DOM Big O. And this is Hokuto no Ken, also known as Fists of the North Star. This game came out in the arcades, and I think sometimes made it over to America, but also got released in Japan on the PS2. I have a Japanese PS2 now. I own this game now. So let's fucking get to it. I'm playing as Kenshiro. The arcade fights in this game actually follow the timeline of the original series. And yeah, I know I didn't scroll through the characters and stuff to show you all of them, but this game has a actually pretty short character list, so you'll see me fight all of them anyways. But yeah, this game was made by the same company that made Guilty Gear and such, and even Persona 4 Arena and the like, and BlazBlue. So, yeah, you can expect some pretty ridiculous shit out of this game. I'm okay at fighting games. I know what I'm doing. I'm not just flailing around most of the time, unless I'm trying to pull off a super move, which you'll see a few times. But I'm not super great either, thus said flailing. Okay, one of the neat things about this game is, like Guilty Gear, it has instant death moves. You have to, those bars underneath their life bar, those blocks underneath their life bar, you have to break them all away. Kenshiro has one specific move that does that very easily, so I spam it a lot in this round to try to defeat Hart. And I actually could have succeeded, but I didn't. I forgot to look at his life bar, and I ended up accidentally killing him before I could pull off the Kenshiro's super move, which is his 100 crack fist. Oh well, I never actually managed to pull it off in this playthrough. Heart was pretty much my best opportunity. I might do a bonus video where I show off some of the, like maybe Kenshiro's instant kill, and I might even do something with the character you see me fighting right now. His name is Shin. He was the first major bad guy of of the first Fists of the North Star story arc. He was Kenshiro's best friend until one day he just wasn't, and he stole his girlfriend. Yeah. Funny thing about Shin, everybody else has instant kill moves and such. Shin actually is the only character in the game that has a suicide move, where he reenacts a scene from the end of the first story arc, wherein instead of allowing himself to be killed by any of Kenshiro's techniques, which Kenshiro, his whole martial arts style is based on poking pressure points and creating the effect that the plot wants him to create. It's pretty fucking hilarious most of the time. But Kenshiro hits him with one of his attacks, and then instead of allowing himself to die by that method, Shin throws himself from the top of a destroyed high-rise building that they're fighting in right now. And, yeah, obviously he dies. Actually, I shouldn't say obviously, because if anybody's a fan of Fatal Fury, they know that Geese Howard, the main antagonist of that game, has fallen out of like 3 or 4 50-story buildings, and yet he keeps coming back at different points, just to end up having a climactic fight in a high-rise where he can fly out the window at the end to his presumed death. Yeah, I spent a little too much time screwing around in this fight, and it ends up costing me. Mainly because it was still one of the early fights, so I wanted to see if I could pull off a move like the one you're seeing right now. It's a super telegraph move that the computer can usually get around. But, in this case, I actually hit him with it. That 3-second timer, when it counts down to 0, no matter how much health he has, he dies. I'm only explaining this to you because you won't actually see it happen. The more they hit you, the slower the time actually starts going. So even if you're hit at the very beginning of the round with it, it's still possible to not die and defeat your opponent. But yeah, Shin's fighting style was very much based on stabbing people with his hands and basically tearing them apart from the inside out. For the most part. There were like 2 classes of martial arts styles in the show. There was the one that Kenshiro and his adoptive brothers had, wherein they could poke pressure points and make people do stuff. Usually they just explode, but sometimes they had them do other silly stuff. And yeah, sometimes it was pretty silly what they had them do. Shin and his ilk had different variations of the same martial art, wherein that they used their hands to as kind of like blades to tear people apart in different fashions. As I said, Shin kind of had stabby hands. And he worked pretty well as a villain. As actually sort of a little bit of a complex villain towards the end. At first his motivations were just like, hey bro, like your girlfriend bro, I want your girlfriend bro, now I'm poking you in the chest. No, seriously though, Shin put 7 holes in the shape of the Big Dipper on Kenshiro's chest. And you get to watch him just kind of lightly place his finger on Kenshiro's chest and then just dig it in. After the first 3, he just takes his whole hand, spreads out his fingers, and puts in the last 4 points on his chest like that. And yeah, from then on, Kenshiro becomes known as the man with 7 scars. I think one of my favorite things about this show is that every episode, Kenshiro would find time to get angry and have his shirt and his jacket explode off of him. And this is a post-apocalyptic wasteland, so resources are thin. Thankfully, Kenshiro has a magic shirt and jacket that just regrows on him at some point. Not a real plot point, but his clothes do really just magically reappear on him and no one ever questions it. Yeah. I win this time, by the way. I kind of stopped fucking around because I realized even in the second round, the game's already tired of my bullshit. It won't stop me from still trying to go for stupid stuff in the future, but I'll play it a bit more straight where if I miss with it, I won't just keep going for it. This game has the same problem, though. Now, what was it? Guilty Gear X2 Sharp Reload, The Midnight Carnival for the original Xbox. And yes, that was actually its full title. Wherein, in arcade mode, the progression of enemies, it does get more difficult, and the scaling works in a nice arc. That's just fine. Until it hits the final boss, wherein the arc just becomes a straight-up wall. It's just ridiculous. I mean, that Guilty Gear game I just mentioned, that particular version of the game had, like, the hardest version of that end boss I have ever fought. It's a guitar woman named Ino, who's like a guitar witch. And she is... Playing as her seems to be a lot harder than the computer makes it seem. The computer makes it seem like she can do anything. Like there's just no hope. At least in that particular game. I've never beaten arcade mode in that game. Which is something, because usually if I'm persistent, I can beat the arcade mode of just about any fighting game eventually. Well, aside from games that I feel like just blatantly straight up cheat most of the time, like a lot of early SNK games. Oh, shit. Microphone fell over. Yeah. So, oh yeah, that's right, I forgot. It comes pretty close here with Mamiya. Mamiya was a special case in the Fist of the North Star series. She was pretty much... She defied expectations in a couple of different ways. From one, just from the fact that she was a character that had none of the special martial arts that all the other characters in the show had, and yet still managed to hold her own against the bad guys most of the time, using just bladed yo-yos, metal spikes, and a crossbow. Oh yeah, if you can hear her while I'm fighting her, whenever she throws out those helmets, she's saying "Gomen Asai." That's actually Japanese for "I'm sorry." But I pretty much get the feeling she's not actually all that sorry. But yeah, she actually manages to hold her own against most of the bad guys. She's not especially effective, but she at least can't kill any of the big bad guys, but she can definitely hold her own against henchmen and such, which was pretty cool. Well, I mean, the other thing that was impressive about her is that there's kind of a history of Fist of the North Star wherein anybody who's a friend of Kenshiro dies a horrible death at some point. Unless they're kids, and unless they're Mamiya for some reason. Mamiya never dies. She just kind of disappears at the end of the story arc, because Kenshiro leaves her village. Which is actually pretty impressive. By the way, here I start making a comeback, and then something fucking hilarious happens. Just watch. I'm gonna stay quiet from here, right now. Did you see that? The explosion of her bike from riding it too long killed her. All I did was block. I'm the Neo Imbigo, and I will see you next time.